Are we
We're
live?
live.
Hi, everybody. This is Alex. We're back on the Astro Imaging channel on a Sunday night. Welcome back to everybody. We are trying some new software tonight, and I think Tolga said he was going to use the closed caption down below. We actually have, in this iteration of the software, closed captioning. And we don't know how they'll come out on YouTube and whether they're taking up too much space. So we've turned them on, and we're going to let you see a little bit of what they look like, and take a vote through the meeting today, and find out if we really like keeping them on, or if our shows are better without them. Let me go to sharing some screen here. If I can do that. Oh, present now. It's not called sharing screen anymore. It's called present now. I'm going to present my entire screen. And are we sharing there? Okay, I'm presenting to everyone. And here is our website. And there's a couple of things I want you to notice about our website. A lot of it is the same as it was before. Remember about 8 or 10 months ago, we had somebody hack into the website, and it's taken us some while to get it straightened out, including getting the links to it all worked out. We decided in the long run that since we're a separate entity now. We are a nonprofit organization. We're a nonprofit organization that will continue no matter who's interested in doing it or who drops out of doing it. And we hope to have more participation through the years. In order to do that, we needed a corporation to do it. And it's a nonprofit corporation. So we decided to become an org instead of a com. So we are now the astroimagingchannel.org. The com will still redirect to org, but you might want to update your links to our programs so that you can come here. We are we have a number of things to show you. Our past shows no longer go in here automatically, and we are working on how we can get it so that our past shows, we used to have all the shows just lined up down there, and we're trying to figure out some other ways to manage this so that you can search for certain information, search for certain shows and things like that. I also wanted to point out to you that we have some really interesting speakers coming up in the near and now even distant future. Tolga, Eric, we've all been doing a really good job of getting people. Matt Dieterich is going to be here today. He's from PlainWave Instruments, and we all know what plane waves are. They're like really, really, really nice imaging tubes. And these guys go all over the place installing these beautiful instruments. And we're going to hear, Matt's going to tell us a little bit about some of the installations that they've made. He's also going to tell us about the technology that goes behind what makes the beautiful images out of PlainWave. Why are PlainWave telescopes and optics, the tubes, the mechanics, the glass, why are they so good? And then he's going to show us some pretty pictures, which is what we all like to do. We all like to see the pretty pictures. Next year, Brian Clement's going to come in and he's going to tell us about comet processing next week. And then the week after that, we've got a couple of guys coming in to tell us about how you can participate at the relatively minor investment, 300 or 400 bucks, in a camera and some stuff, and you can do meteor science. I've got a Raspberry Pi up in my attic that's connected to a camera up on my roof, and it counts meteors every night. I get a stream of all the meteors that went over my house and all the airplanes and a few other things. Going to have some people coming in to tell us about observatory building, more citizen science, another version of comet processing with Pix Insight. Richard Wright's coming back sometime in early June. We're scheduled pretty well through all of June, and we think we've got the first one in July, but we still need more presenters. The hardest part of putting on the Astro Imaging channel is getting the presenters for you. So we really would appreciate it if you guys could help us with that. One other place I wanted to take you tonight is we were talking about the show earlier tonight, and looking at the comments. Um, yeah, this is pretty cool. You guys you're having a social club meeting out there. You guys, don't forget, you can also use this to ask questions of the presenter. You don't have to just find out what the weather is everywhere, what you're doing tonight, why it's not working, and all that stuff. it's cool. I'm glad you're doing it, but come on, you can ask other questions too. So go ahead and contribute to that. You'll notice on the YouTube page, there's a couple other things. One is you'll notice that we're up to 8.49 subscribers, almost 8,500. I've been asking you for some time to hit that subscribe button. Okay, so do hit the subscribe button, everyone, and add to that total. The more people we can get subscribing, either tonight or when you're watching it sometime in the next week, there's probably going to be 800 to 1,000 people watching in the next week. If you like what we're doing, subscribe. And when you subscribe, then you're going to get a notice when the next show is going to be about and stuff like that. So please do that. Also, a reminder that we are a nonprofit organization, and down here in the lower left-hand corner, there is a way to donate to the astroimaging channel. It doesn't take a lot, but it does help to know that people are supporting us with those donations. Okay, so that's all about all of that. And remember, I told you the Matt was going to tell us about the installations and the technology of PlainWave, and then he was going to show us some pretty pictures. Well, it's time for Matt to start up, and Matt, take it from here, okay?
Yeah,
Alex,
sounds good.
before we get
Yes,
going, Alex,
yes, I
that
can hear you.
caption is taking up 1/3 of the screen over on
I think the
YouTube.
captions got to go. You guys
Yeah,
can see the
I think so.
captions here. You can make your comments, but and there's a question here about what happened to Adam. Does he still help out? Yeah, Adam has gotten what, 4 or 5 emails this week, back and forth with us, trying to straighten out all of the links to the software, all that stuff that we have to do. Yeah, we're all working on that. So Adam is still, he's fine. He's well. He doesn't come on the show as often as we'd like, but he's still there. So let's get back to work. Matt, take it. Oh,
Sure, sounds good. I'll just swap to present it.
I have to stop presenting.
I
Stop
think it should
presenting.
be now.
That's part of the new software. Okay, now
Okay.
you can take it.
Perfect. Okay, presenting your screen. All right, guys. So I appreciate you hanging out with us tonight. It's the first time joining the Astro Imaging channel. And my work with PlainWave Instruments is I'm the technical service manager. So I've been overseeing a lot of the installations for the past 2 years, and I help do some multimedia. So today, I just want to talk about who PlainWave is as a team, as a company. I'll talk a little bit about the technology that we have, and I'll also talk about some of the equipment that we've been installing across the planet for observatories the last couple of years. And I'll wrap up with just some of the pretty photos that I've captured over the 15 years or so of some of my astrophotography experience. So as a company, we're based right now in Adrian, Michigan. We were founded in 2006 by Rick Dieterich and Joe Haberman, and they started from former Celestron engineers. Right now, we manufacture from 12.5-inch telescopes all the way up to 2-meter systems for observatories. And the direct drive mounts, we also manufacture in addition to the optical tubes. And we'll talk a little bit about the direct drive technology coming up. So for the optics technology portion, for those of you that do not know PlainWave, we have pioneered the CDK design, and the CDK stands for corrected Dahl-Kirkham. That's an optical tube that has a flat field. It's coma-free and free from off-axis astigmatism. And all that means for us astrophotographers is it's going to illuminate the very large image sensors and provide pinpoint images to the very edge of those camera sensors. Working with them is extremely user-friendly due to the fact that the primary mirror itself is fixed. It doesn't move. We actually epoxy them into place so they're fully secured and laser aligned. So there's no primary mirror adjustment, only collimation from the secondary mirror, which makes maintenance of the optical tube extremely minimal and user-friendly. Essentially, all that means is we can produce the highest quality optics for lower prices due to the design of the telescopes themselves. So Obviously, a lot of you guys have different backgrounds with astronomy. You might just be starting, or you might be an advanced imager for 20, 30 years. Essentially, if you're just beginning, or even if you're a seasoned veteran, when you talk to different companies, when you order equipment, you want to make sure that you are understanding the actual mechanical and the optical information that they are describing to you on their website or over the phone. So when we provide information about the equipment, especially with off-axis performance, we make sure that it is across the whole field of the optical tube. The analysis of the light itself is polychromatic, meaning we analyze numerous wavelengths across the optical tube. And we also provide higher information about the central obstruction when advertising them online and talking about them. So essentially, these are just a few bullet points that when you are ordering equipment and looking for it online, some of the very high-end equipment you want to understand and measure to compare against other companies. So that's just something you might want to take away when you are looking at equipment in the future. The corrected Dahl-Kirkham design itself is pretty incredible. The fact the mirrors are extremely lightweight compared to solid pieces of glass. We actually lightweight the back to conical designs for the smaller systems. For the 1 meter systems, we lightweight them even more, and that allows them to reach ambient temperatures very quickly. The primary mirror, as I noted, is laser aligned and it's fixed. So there's only adjustment from the secondary when you're actually working with collimation. So that makes it a lot easier when you're maintaining the system. The carbon fiber tube as well, that also provides very minimal expansion from temperature changes. So you're going to be able to have rock solid imaging over the course of a night, even as that temperature dips down throughout the evening. And we have that thermal expansion joint, which basically just takes up some of the expansion from the different types of materials. And that allows for even better imaging, just so you're not distorting the optical tube throughout the night. So in this example, I talked about being able to illuminate very large sensors. This one is just showing a 12.5-inch telescope. At the center, you're going to have nice pinpoint stars. And at the very edge, you're also going to have pinpoint stars. And this is on a large 16803 sensor. So it's, I believe, a 52 millimeter diagonal sensor. So even our smallest optical tubes are designed around the largest sensors that amateurs like us are able to image with nowadays. When also talking about the corrected Dahl-Kirkham, some people might be looking at Ritchie-Creation RC designs. So this diagram is showing the difference between a Ritchie-Creation in a 20-inch aperture versus the CDK. Essentially, the CDK, you don't have any off-axis astigmatism or field curvature that you would with the Ritchie-Creation design. And essentially, of course, that means higher quality images across the full field. And because the corrected Dahl-Kirkham already has lenses installed, you don't have to add on the extra accessories of a field flattener. So it's permanently mounted in place, so you're not going to get any image plane tilt from adding accessories into the optical train. And this one even more so, we're just showing it, comparing it to the Ritchie-Creation. Once you actually add on the field flattener, you can still see, obviously, that adding a field flattener can somewhat become close because you're correcting for coma, but you still have the field curvature to some minor extent. And it's interesting when you compare these between brands. While you look for equipment, and spot diagrams are great for that, to understand the performance of an optical tube across large image sensors. So you'll have pinpoint images across these big 16803 sensors. Okay, so the optical tubes are just one cool component of PlainWave, all the way up to the 2-meter systems I talked about. But direct drive mounts are a big piece of our manufacturing capability, because we need to point the optical tube and keep it tracking on high quality targets. And direct drive mounts provide the highest quality tracking that we can achieve. And it's what the large observatories are actually using as well. So this image is just showing our L350, and it has a CDK 14. So it's one of our smallest direct drive mounts currently available right now, but it can hold up to a 100-pound payload. And the tracking accuracy is what is awesome with the direct drive mounts, because there's no gears and there's no backlash and no periodic error to deal with, because there's no gears that are meshing together when the telescope is actually tracking. So also with this image, same thing, you're going to have pinpoint image stars from the center of the field of view all the way to the very edge with the CDK14, which pairs nicely with that system. Step up in size is going to be the CDK 500 package, which is a beautiful mount. It can hold up to 200-pound capacity optical tube, and you can even mount refractors or smaller equipment on the outside arm, and that's seen in this image that we installed in France. That's actually a refractor on the outside arm. So you can slew very quickly with these mounts. You can track satellites. You can track the space station. Very simple to do with direct drive mounts, because they can slew upwards of 50 degrees per second, and the acceleration as well is 20 degrees per second squared. So you'll be able to get on target very quickly and have very minimal maintenance, because there's no gears meshing together that you need to lubricate. And then the bigger L mount that we offer right now is the CDK 600 package, and that is with the L600 mount holding up to 300-pound capacity equipment. This was one that we did at Adler Planetarium. It had the CDK 24 and the Takahashi 106, and on the left is the CDK 24 at Brigham Young University that we installed just a couple months ago. But that mount is a beautiful system, and providing also the pinpoint images from the corner all the way back, of course, to the center of the imaging train. So this is just a image of one of the beautiful galaxies from a client that we just like sharing, showcasing some of the beautiful work that's being done. Okay, so essentially, and hopefully this video plays, but this is going to show some of the tracking. So with direct drive mounts, when we install them, you need to build a pointing model. And a pointing model is what our software, PWI4, is going to do. It's going to capture images of the night sky and fingerprint them to a database. It's going to plate solve. And once you have a set of 20, 30, 40 plate solve points, you have a pointing model that's going to be giving you between 5 and 10 arc seconds of RMS error when pointing. So all that means is your target is going to be on the center of your camera chip, and you're going to be ready to image. So this video is just showing quickly building a pointing model with the CDK 500 package, and it's pretty cool being able to do this all remotely and connected to the equipment. Okay. So the way that we control the direct drive mounts is through our PWI4 software, and the technology behind that is pretty impressive, because direct drive mounts are very difficult to tune. And tuning means that you're controlling the motor parameters. But what we've done at PlainWave is we have led in that category of simplifying the process of tuning direct drive mounts. So to me, with a click of a button, after balancing the optical tube and accessories, you can run our auto tuning software, and that's going to run the mount through different positions and take those motor parameters and give you the best tracking accuracy possible. And normally what I see in the field is 0.05 to 0.15 arc seconds of RMS tracking error. So it's pretty crazy that you have that low level of tracking error. So that allows you to do unguided sub-exposures if you're on an equatorial wedge and if there's minimal wind. So we have clients that have done 20-minute unguided sub-exposures on a wedge with a CDK 500 package. And with this auto tuner that we have now in place with PWI4, we've allowed our customers to do the motor tuning, and that essentially makes it so your optical tube and mount are tracking to the best quality possible. And this is one of the videos that we have on YouTube now that is actually going to go through and show you guys how to run and optimize your mount with our tracking, our new auto tuner software. So that's something that you might want to check out. After the video, we can get you guys links for the new auto tuning software, which is just in the commands menu, and you will run that. So once a mount is tuned, unless you change the weight or the moments of inertia much, you won't need to retune. So for most users, this is a one and done thing. But if you add another telescope to the side, or if you shift optical tubes and put a new one on, you definitely want to retune, and that's going to restore the tracking accuracy back down to that 0.05 to 0.15 arc seconds of RMS there. So that's up on YouTube, and you can check out, or you can message us for the links for the auto tuner to just watch that a little bit more. So when we're done doing the pointing model itself, now the pointing error is normally, as you see in the bottom of this image, I have it circled in red, is under 5 arc seconds of RMS error when pointing. And this is with a 66-point model. So that takes, 15 minutes to run. So it's pretty quick. And you can also polar align, which is pretty incredible. I have used this in the field to polar align multiple equatorial systems with our mounts. So we've got it down to under 10 arc seconds of RMS error for each altitude and azimuth direction. So you just center up on a star and you mechanically move the wedge until everything is pointing dead on a star. And within 10, 15 minutes, you can have a system that is polar aligned to below 10 arc seconds of error. And that's pretty cool. So that is our direct drive technology and PWI4 software behind the L series lineup. And now, quick, I'd just like to talk about the CDK 700. So this is an observatory package that is alt-azimuth and has the very same tracking and pointing precision as the L mounts that we also offer. But these are for the observatories that want the added aperture of the 0.7 meter system, and that has dual Naismith design. So you can have a fast CMOS sensor on one side of the system for, say, satellite tracking or lucky imaging, and have a CCD or an eyepiece on the other Naismith. And with software, you can quickly flip between port 1 and port 2, and you can have a dual use system essentially that is quick to switch between imaging packages. The scaled up version of the 0.7 meter is the 1 meter system, and last year we installed I think 7 or 8 of these within the course of 6-7 months. So we had about 1 of these installs a month. And the bottom image, you actually see the honeycomb lightweighted mirror. We machine out solid glass to lightweight the fused silica mirror, and that allows the mirror to cool down very quickly without distorting the shape. So the users will get the most optimal pinpoint stars across 100 millimeter image circles. So a lot of the users now can run the 60-60 size sensors, which are massive, but the 1 meter was designed to be able to illuminate that fully. And it's a pretty beautiful system to install with dual Naismith as well, and same direct drive technology. So these will be a few images from some customers over the next few slides here. And this was a recent one that was an APOD with Martin Pugh and Mark Hansen. Beautiful hydrogen alpha detail to get the actual curtains in the mission nebulae there. They did a beautiful job on that one. It's pretty cool. Here's another one. Mark Hansen did a beautiful planetary nebula. This was a CDK24 that they used to capture this one. That's one of my favorite systems to work with, is the CDK400 or CDK24. Planetary images. Also, for those of you that love doing planetary imaging, the large aperture and sharp optical quality of the telescopes are great for planetary imaging. And this is just a couple examples from Thailand. They had great seeing and able to shoot through the 0.7 meter. And for most of you probably know Don Goldman, just one of the excellent imagers out there that's dedicated a lot of his time to the hobby. Another APOD, beautiful rosette Nebula. Now, I don't want to delve too much into more of the imaging right now, but I'll just talk about what I've been doing with PlainWave. So for the last couple years, I've been overseeing their international installations and making sure that clients are up to speed with the equipment when we're on site, so they're trained. I will create multimedia of the installations themselves, but the goal on site is making sure that we install the equipment to the best of our ability so it performs optimally for the client. So for any of you that are looking to grow on your observatory side or need assistance, this is something PlainWave has been excited to always assist with doing installations. So I've made a little bit of YouTube videos, and I'll be making some more for PlainWave, and just wanting to share my passion for astrophotography and telescope equipment, because you know, I'm sitting at home right now, and right outside is the lawn where I was actually doing all my imaging 15 years ago when I started this hobby. And now being able to work, you know, for PlainWave and install telescopes is super fun, and makes the long days on site that much more worth it, because we're making clients excited by putting in awesome observatory systems and helping them achieve their goals. So I always like doing that. Okay, so the next handful of slides will be on installations over the last year and a half or so. This was a 1 meter system that we put in for a client in Utah, and this is a couple of my colleagues here, and we were doing some on-sky testing to build a pointing model with one of the SBIG cameras. And another 1 meter system that we installed was last March, and we went down to Chile on Cerro Tololo, which is a beautiful site in Chile with some large instruments. And we installed a 1 meter for them. And one of the commissioning images is right here showing the Sombrero Galaxy. The system was not collimated yet, but we did a first light to just experiment and make sure that we're on target. Okay, so this one is a next Pinwheel Galaxy, and that was a 60-second sub-exposure. So it's pretty cool seeing all that detail in the galactic arms of the pinwheel. It's incredible. Short sub-exposures, just one image, really pulls in a lot of light from those 1 meter telescopes. Not long after we did that install, we had to go down to Australia to install this 1 meter for a client, and we're excited, you know, to share some of his images from the first light. This was a hydrogen alpha image of the Eta Carinae Nebula, and we did a single 10-minute photo. And the 1 meter has a field derotator, so it's going to keep the star's pinpoint. Just like you see also in this image of Centaurus A galaxy, this was so cool to image and see live through the telescope while we actually did a little bit of observing. So case in point again about just the beautiful detail of Mega Centauri and the light that these 1 meter systems can pull in. It's pretty cool. Another system that we installed the second of 2 CDK 600 packages for an observatory in Switzerland. So we set them up, and this is a observatory for Schaffhausen. It's a small town, but they have an incredible group of amateur astronomers that love educating the public. And we did some first light imaging on the Dumbbell Nebula here, Messier 27. Beautiful 60-second image there that we captured for first light. And this is one of the more interesting installs that we were part of here. This was in France, and the client had to stay in the theme of Saint-Tropez by having terracotta roof. So he had to engineer it so the roof was actually a roll-off, and it weighed about 10 tons, I believe, from all the actual terracotta panels and the weight to support it. And the pier would actually raise and lower. So it's pretty cool to be a part of this unique one where the client is actually going to be doing exoplanet studies and some spectroscopy. So he does some great work. These are some of my favorite systems to install. The CDK 600 package, that's the CDK 24 with the L600 mount. Beautiful systems to install, and if I could have one in my backyard, I think that would be one of the apertures I would go with, because we can mount them equatorially on the wedge, and do a lot of very long exposures. And this case in point with a shot with the Milky Way there from New Mexico skies. I did a time lapse while we were shooting, just showing the observatory, and I showed the Milky Way paired with it. So when I'm on installs, I bring my camera equipment and I like to showcase a little bit of the behind the scenes because I think it's just so cool, being out under the night sky with some of these observatories for clients. So that was a fun trip back last summer there. Okay, so this one is a panorama. I did a panoramic image just showing the dome and the arcing Milky Way from New Mexico skies for that observatory. So it was a beautiful night putting that equipment together. And it wouldn't be an observatory install without the first light, as long as it's clear. The same night that we install, we capture the first light images and teach the client how to use the equipment. So this was a single 5-minute exposure of the dumbbell with that CDK 600 system. We did some installations, another one in Chile we assisted with from the amazing dark skies of OBSTech. They're a fun group of professional PhD astronomers to work with that are actually growing their facility. So they have over 50 systems there now, and many PlainWave installations have gone here. And we were lucky enough to go there and witness the zodiacal light with the Milky Way setting. I captured this when I was on site to help with the CDK 600 visit with the Magellanic clouds over the roll-off roof. It's pretty amazing there, seeing the Milky Way and staying on site. They have a lodge. You can actually stay on site that they're building, so it'll kind of be like a little retreat spot for astrophotographers and researchers. And this is the system that we put in. OBSTech put in a CDK 600 package. It's on the wedge, and beautiful system under great dark skies. We did some actually satellite tracking, and I hope this GIF plays for you guys. But in the early morning in December, we had a client that he developed this tether, this material that was on a low Earth orbit satellite, and the satellite would release this 1 kilometer long tether. So this GIF is actually playing. You see the satellite in the middle. That is the tether deployed on the actual loaf of bread size satellite, small satellite, and we imaged it with that CDK 600 package. So it's pretty cool seeing and having be able to shoot live. But that's the power of the direct drive technology, being able to image that, with also being able to switch over and just start imaging deep sky objects like this one, case in point, a beautiful 5-minute sub exposure with a CDK 600 there at OBSTech. We wrapped up the international travel last year with an installation in Thailand for the NARIT team, and that's the National Astronomical Research Institute of Thailand. We had the first light of at Messier 33, the Triangulum Galaxy. Just a beautiful object. The seeing was crisp that night, and just seeing all the detail with this older CCD that we used to do first light was pretty spectacular and beautiful to see. And it's fun just educating those people on the equipment. This year, we started out the installation season with going to Chicago in January, and we installed this CDK 600 for Adler Planetarium. So it was the first install in multiple decades for them, and we're still so excited that we actually got to be part of that. And the story behind the scenes with the history of Adler is pretty special to have equipment installed there. We did another installation. We went to New Mexico and we put in a CDK 400 package. I captured this photo here of the observatory after the installation was complete, with Orion and Sirius and a little bit of the winter Milky Way. Some clouds kind of rolled in that evening, but this is the equipment that we put together for the client. We will oversee, install, manage all the cables so nothing gets snagged, and make sure the system's optimized. So we want to make sure that you guys are running to the fullest potential with your equipment. And we're very proud of that aspect. And with this other example, we did the Brigham Young CDK 600 package, which was a beautiful system to work with. The campus was great. And they did this awesome custom offset pier because it's equatorial. So it has to be mounted in the center of the dome, and that beautiful powder coated blue Brigham Young blue system is now there installed and capturing images as we speak. So that is kind of led up to the current travel restrictions now for the installations this year. We did 3 to 4 installs already this year, and we'll get back to traveling as soon as it's safe enough for us to travel as a team. So I will just kind of do a little bit of discussion on my astrophotography, and kind of where I began was in 2005, began just with a telescope and wanting to share the night sky, just like many of yourselves. You want to share the beauty that you see in the night sky. And I realized that a camera was the way to do that, with pairing it to a telescope. So, over the last 15 years, I've worked in astrophotography has been my passion, and, kind of my peace of mind of going to dark sky locations to image. And I was fortunate to receive an accolade of having one of my images chosen as a postage stamp by the National Park Service, and it was selected back a few years ago. And that kind of really made me realize that people look at astrophotography not as just this scientific endeavor that I thought it was, but they look at it as an art form, and it inspires people and makes them happy. And I think that's something important that we need to realize with our imaging and our photography is to share it. Is to show young people how to image and teach them how to use a camera so you can inspire them. And you don't know where that will lead them, especially with a lot of the technology nowadays.
Matt,
Yep.
do you have time for a couple questions?
Yeah, sure. Happy to.
I'm looking over on YouTube. Barry asked, I'm not sure what this is there a consideration to utilize I think it's Coude focus with the CDK?
Oh, we actually, with the CDK 700 and CDK 1000, the 1 meter, Coude path options are available, and we manufacture those. So for those size systems, yes, it's with the dual Naismith systems, the 0.7 and the 1 meter and the 2 meter. So we can manufacture the Coude path mirrors and mounts. So yes, that's something that we fully have done, and we actually just shipped out a Coude path mirror system for a client in Arizona.
Could you also just give us a minute on the different wedge configurations? It was a question about that.
Okay. Yeah. So no matter with the wedges, when installed equatorially, each wedge has an adjustable range of plus or minus 3 degrees. So essentially, you have minus 3 degrees and plus 3 degrees from your latitude. So that means you have 6 degrees of latitude adjustment. So for me, at 40 degrees north, I would buy the 40-degree wedge. And of course, for 40 degrees, it would be right there, case in point. So I wouldn't need to adjust it really. But we have wedges available for all latitudes that would be applicable for the equatorial system. And that could be with the L mounts. And right now, we're not equatorially mounting the 1 meter or the 0.7. So equatorially is only right now for the L series, up to the 0.6 meters.
What about the Southern Hemisphere?
Pardon?
The Southern Hemisphere, it's the same issue?
Oh, Southern Hemisphere? Yeah, same. It's just a duplicate. So we have numerous equatorially mounted systems in the Southern Hemisphere. That CDK 600 at Obstec, that's in Chile, and is equatorially mounted, and they're, I think, 30 some degrees south. So very similar, also equatorially mounted.
And Larry asked, the system in Utah looks like an STL 11,000 mounted on the Alta-S. What kind of camera mount is in that setup?
That is our commissioning camera that we call it. We bring it on 1 meter installs. That is actually STL 6303. So a little bit smaller of a sensor, but that is what you saw capturing the black and white images of the 1 meter installations, is the SBIG older 6303 sensor.
Actually, someone asked an astrophotography question. What would be your choice for a good to great 24 millimeter lens for a Sony E mount for astrophotography?
Sure. So the one most affordable 24 millimeter is going to be the Rokinon 24 millimeter. I've used that for 5 years now, and I do a lot of panoramas with it. It does have significant coma and off-axis astigmatism. You'll get crosses in the corner, but it's very affordable. It was like a $500 lens, and it's manual, so it's only going to be used mainly at night, so it doesn't have autofocus. But it's f1.4, so that means you're going to capture great Milky Way images. And this image on the right of this Milky Way, that was with the 24 millimeter Rokinon, so they soak up a lot of light if you go with that the f1.4.
Okay, a couple more questions quickly. Are you going to have another open house when things kind of lighten up?
Absolutely, we are, and we're actually thinking about also doing some astrophotography related conferences and that sort of thing. So we're definitely going to do another open house so people can see and meet and hang out and have a good time talking astronomy.
And one more question, can the L350 carry optics on both sides of the mount like the L500? And I guess you said the answer would be yes, of course, right?
Correct. Yes, it can. So as long as you remain close to that 100-pound payload, and that's with cameras and accessories. So we put I put a CDK 14 and a refractor on the outside. The CDK 14 is a 55-pound system. And so you do that and the refractor, you have an incredibly versatile system, wide field and high focal length as well. So just hang around that 100-pound capacity for the 350, but perfectly can attach a system on the outside of that dovetail.
I think we're all set for now. Go ahead.
Well, no, I think we,
What do
excuse
you
me,
know?
I think we have one more. Can you hear me, Matt?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. Isa Muhammad, and I want to make a shout out here. Isa answered a question, or Isa answered a question last week or the week before. I asked for somebody who could show us a little bit about electronic assisted astronomy, and he has just completed a Messier marathon, which was pretty interesting, and
Wow.
volunteered to show us how he captured that. And that show will be coming up on the Astro Imaging channel on June 28th, I think. But to his point, he wants to know if is there a measurable difference in performance between the equatorial and the Altaz configurations of the mounting.
Yeah, when you decide on Altaz or equatorial, the question you need to ask yourself is, what will the primary use of the equipment be? If you're doing astrophotography, we recommend equatorial because derotating like an Altaz system for flat fielding is something that we're developing. We're developing a way to flat field, make synthetic flats with a derotator. We're working on that software now, but right now creating flat frames to calibrate your images with an equatorial system, this is a lot easier because your camera is not moving around the optical axis. It's staying fixed. So biggest thing is Altaz, you have to derotate with your flat frames, and that is tricky. With equatorial, you do not have to do that. So your flat frames are going to be easier. And that's a big significant thing. Or depending on the size of your observatory. If you have a small observatory, sometimes you can only fit an Altaz system in there without the equatorial wedge. But they're very compact for both of the L mounts.
Now you started that answer with if you're going to be doing astrophotography, and maybe it's just my ignorance, but what other applications are there? Where would you not have that as a consideration?
Sure. So we have clients that we work with. If you recall looking at the one images of satellite tracking that I showed,
Hmm.
We have a lot of defense and commercial entities wanting to track satellites, and with an equatorial system, it is actually really good for tracking satellites. But a lot of people will utilize alt-azimuth because they want a more compact system. So that's very capable of communicating with satellites, capturing images for space situational awareness, and the up and coming market, which is called laser communication. So a satellite will be directing an infrared laser down to the direct drive mount, the optics. The optics will receive infrared light, and it's fiber optic internet speed data essentially without the fiber. So you need to track the satellite while you're actually capturing the infrared light through the optical tube. So there's multiple applications outside of astrophotography for PlainWave's optics and mounts.
Okay. Russ has asked about what is the ratio of lights to flats. Can you help him with that?
I think normally you would like a minimum of 30 flats, I believe. And 30 in general is a rule of thumb for statistical analysis when processing images. So I would shoot a minimum of 30 frames of anything, whether it's your lights or your darks or your bias or your flat frames.
It's
So
just a standard answer for that's what you should have, no matter what kind of mount or optics or anything you're using.
hmm
You should try to hit 30. Okay.
hmm
Okay. And I do believe that we've caught all of the questions, not all the
Cool.
conversations necessarily, but all the questions. I think we've got them. If
Sweet.
we haven't, please type them in again. This gets to be a long comment thread after a while. So type them in again if we haven't gotten to you.
That's awesome. Cool. Okay. So should I carry on then?
Sure, carry on.
Okay. So yeah, I joined PlainWave in 2018. I left my geology, oil and gas field, and I joined PlainWave to oversee their installations. And it's been a very fast last couple years. I've been very fortunate with that system at Obstec in Chile, the CDK 600. The client lets me log in and capture images when he is not using the system, when he's busy. And all in essence, I'll make sure his system is optimized and running and capture some images. And this one was Messier 83, the Southern Pinwheel. So I did 26 hours of data, and I had so much fun editing and processing this one because it was the first time that I've integrated hydrogen alpha into LRGB. I'm learning a lot, just like yourselves, on imaging, and it's been great. I normally image with a DSLR back 15 years ago, and I never stepped up to a CCD. And obviously, I just didn't have the money at the time. So having access to capture images and share now is crazy cool. And this is another one from Obstec I captured. Incredibly dark skies, fiber optic internet speed. So I'm able to log in remotely, and it basically seemed like I'm talking to a computer down the road, even though I'm 5,000 miles away. But I did a couple hours of exposures on the Centaurus A galaxy here, and this was only, I believe, 1 hour of RGB and then 2 hours of luminance. And I just was blown away by the detail. Just a beautiful galaxy. And I did some more narrowband. This was one of the first narrowband images I created, kind of the Hubble palette style of mapping the hydrogen alpha, of mapping the oxygen and that brownish sulfur emission. So I think this is so cool. I had a background in chemistry with geology, and I think it's cool with spectroscopy that basically we're analyzing this light and we can tell what the main chemical compounds are. I mean, this is looking at hydrogen, oxygen, and sulfur. It's cool to be able to fingerprint and say that that's what that target is made out of primarily. And again, this is with that CDK 600 package. With my background in astrophotography for 15 years, I started out through imaging with telescopes, and I realized how difficult that was. And when I started going to dark sky sites and imaging with my telescope, I realized that once the equipment was running and imaging, I would just lay out and watch the Milky Way, but I wanted to share the experience of the Milky Way arcing overhead. So I started doing the wide field imaging back, 5, 6, 7 years ago to capture behind the scenes imaging. And this was one image I did a couple years ago of the Milky Way from the Atacama Desert, and just a single camera and a lens and a tripod. So it's powerful what can get you involved into astrophotography. I really liked doing mosaics, which also I call panoramas. So you stack numerous images and overlap them so you can stack and make one big image. So this is actually a 72 image panorama of the Milky Way with the beautiful hydrogen alpha regions and Rho Ophiuchus and the zodiacal light there on the right-hand side of that desert road in the Atacama Desert. So it's one of the most spectacular locations for stargazing and in teaching astronomy. That's a great spot that I'll be leading workshops at for those interested in astrophotography on a bucket list level. I'll actually be teaching people down there at some workshops. With a camera and a tripod, you can also take photos out plane windows. And if you plan it the right way, you can get the window seat and you can know when the Milky Way is setting, and hopefully the cabin lights dim to do this. So I captured this image, a single exposure of the Milky Way setting over the Pacific Ocean from 40,000 feet in a Boeing jet. And I had the tripod leaned up against the window, and I had myself covered with a blanket, and took a few photos before the Milky Way set. And I think that's the camera technology nowadays is so cool to be able to image the Milky Way from a plane, and it's pretty spectacular. So last up for this one was a photo from a big panorama showing the zodiacal light and the Milky Way with some air glow from OBSTech. Again, just showing the crazy dark skies and beautiful Milky Way setting, just horizon to horizon with a simple DSLR and tripod. And just another one, this was from my time at Mount Rainier, a beautiful exposure with the fog that rolled in the valley. Was one of the coolest experiences. And that's Portland. Portland light pollution is glowing over the mountains there, but a pretty experience just from the parking lot of the visitor center. I thought it was very pretty. But I hope it gives you a little bit of background on what we do at PlainWave on the optics, on the direct drive mounts, and the software. We have such talented and educated people that we work with, and all the clients really make PlainWave, very, very special. And I just want to thank every one of you guys who is working hard on your astrophotography. And if there's anything that we can do to help your experience, we're all imagers, and we can understand the relationship to the night sky. So pass that on to someone in the next generation and help someone mentor them, because the night sky is special and it's precious, as we all know. So I appreciate your guys' time, and it means a lot. So I hope you all have a good Sunday.
Awesome, Matt. Hey, guys, if you guys want to see Matt come back and talk about his personal photography and the classes that he makes, hit the like button down below.
And subscribe. It helps to subscribe. And we have a couple more questions. Eric, you got some questions over there, I think, from YouTube?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Just let me turn on my mic. So who are the typical customers that you have? Is it individuals like us, or universities, or the government, or if I can ask?
Yeah, we span the gamut from private individuals like amateur astronomers ourselves and astrophotographers, all the way to international government, agencies, universities, commercial companies tracking satellites. There's a lot of applications for the mounts and the optics. So we deal with a pretty wide range of clients. Hopefully that answers it.
What are the lead time? I guess lead time on the mounts or the scopes?
Yeah, lead times right now are actually pretty quick. L mounts within a couple months, optics within 4 to 5 months, depending on the timing when you place an order. Maybe a little bit sooner. It really just depends. We do have a 1 meter and 0.7 meter in stock, so those are on the shelf essentially. But everything else, the lead times are normally 2 to 5 months, depending on what you order. But we've been working to get more equipment on the shelves, so the lead times are minimal.
That 1 meter must be a real pleasure to work with. Do you know if you've worked with it, are there any issues with finding guide stars with something that big?
The focal length is 6,000 millimeters. With trying to guide with it, most of the clients are doing research. We do have imagers with it, but they're doing unguided exposures of 10 minutes plus normally, and so they're not auto guiding from what I've seen. But that's not to say that you can't add. You can add an auto guider, and it would collect a lot of light, so very faint stars would be visible for guiding.
Someone asked, can the loom caused by ground lights be a challenge to compensate for?
Oh, can which lights?
It's written, can the loom caused by ground light be a challenge to compensate for?
Yeah, back when you were showing pictures of the big Milky Way over Chile in the Atacama, yeah, not much there, but that's when the question came up. Yeah, in that picture, and I think the one before it, the I- we all imagine Chile is there aren't any lights anywhere on the horizon.
Okay. Yeah. So Chile, what's incredible, I was shocked too by a couple of the little towns, and these are dirt road towns. When you drive through, they're incredibly beautiful with incredible people and culture. The dry air really makes it so even though you see that little glow, that's a town a couple miles away, but the dry air doesn't have moisture droplets in it, so you don't really get bad light pollution. And this is outside of San Pedro de Atacama, and that's a massive, well, it's a large tourist town with lights, and this is 10 minutes down the road to give you an idea on the Milky Way and zodiacal light. So this is more of a touristy area, but it's great for imaging and safe. And it's just one of the darkest skies I've ever seen in terms of getting to a good location in Chile.
Well, a lot of what we complain about with light pollution, it's not just the light, but it's the light bouncing around among all the humidity and the dust and everything else up in the sky.
Hmm.
And without that
Correct.
in the desert, it's not, it'll show up in the picture, but it's not showing up in the sky so much.
Yeah, and the glow on the horizon, you see what's actually looks like waves or clouds. That's atmospheric air glow. That's oxygen molecules giving off energy that it's soaked up from the sun during the day. So that red is oxygen molecules giving off light. So that's how dark the skies are, that you're limited by air glow. I mean, that's difficult to find nowadays, but I mean, it's so cool. I
And
love it.
is that the zodiacal light off to the right?
Yeah, that's a zodiacal there, and I believe that was Venus to the above it. There's the bright little dot. Yeah,
And,
this is zodiacal just hanging,
and
setting there.
Rowo Fucus up with the pretty colors up there at the top.
Exactly. And those are single 8-second photos to give you an idea. Untracked, that's how dark the skies are. An 8-second photo pulls in a lot of light and detail.
Most of us have never been to such a dark place. Relative to the picture we're seeing here, what does it visually look like when you're actually sitting there watching it? How much can you see of those colors?
Sure. The colors, the human eye can't perceive the colors in the night sky very well, at least my eye. But the Milky Way is literally so bright that it will almost cast a shadow on the desert floor behind you. It's black and white overhead and pitch black to the point that you can't see your hand in front of your face. So it's it's pretty spectacular. You see thousands and thousands of stars. You kind of get lost in them. It's I don't know. I want people to experience it so much, and that's what I'm passionate about, is dark sky, observing with people, getting them to feel that experience, because it's difficult to get away from lights.
Matt,
Yeah, I can attest to that. Where if you look at like a computer screen and then go outside in a dark place like that, you can't see your hand. But about 20 minutes later, your eyes adjust. Now you all of a sudden start seeing your shadow on the ground from the Milky Way light. It's just amazing.
Yeah.
We have a question here about a 2-meter system.
Mm-hmm.
a 2M system. Michael Aitken wants to know about that.
2-meter?
Yeah. We are in the design phase of a 2-meter system, and that's we're looking at around, I think, close to the 3 million price point. The 1 meter is $650K, to give you an idea. So we're looking around probably that 3 million mark for it, but it's in the design phase. And if you have questions about it, or need information, just feel free to touch base with us, and we'll help you out.
Right. Now, these comments are going to be here after the show, so you go ahead and read through them. But I want to make sure that you understand that you were highly appreciated. I'm particularly looking for one comment back here. Barry Allen, who says what I want to say. Thanks for the collective passion of enriching the science of astronomy. And, we could tell that the way you told your story, you really love this stuff and you want other people to enjoy it. And that's what we're here for on Sunday nights. So we really appreciate you doing that.
Yeah, no, Barry, absolutely. And you're right. Just keep passing it on down the line, right? I mean, we want people to enjoy this stuff, and it's difficult to get away from the lights, but if you can, I mean, it can change someone's life to get them a camera and get them out under a dark sky somewhere. That's one thing I want to help do as much as I can. And everyone else is so passionate that it's addictive. It really is, to share this stuff.
Okay. I want everybody to go ahead and type in any last questions. We're getting ready to wrap up here. As you know, we are always looking for let me see, what are we showing here in the actual meeting? I'm over in the YouTube page. Okay, keep that picture up there, Matt, if you don't mind. It's prettier than me anyway. We are always looking for presenters. On cloudy nights this morning, somebody asked for a presentation on connecting a backyard observatory to your house computer. And if anybody has had some experience doing that, I know we did a show on it about 4 or 5 years ago where I showed you what was in my backyard. And I'm going to be doing a little bit of that for Woodland Hills I guess on May 2nd. I don't know what time of the day it is, but Woodland Hills is going to be putting on one of their live shows, and I'm going to be showing a little bit about how to connect to a backyard observatory and how to use a session manager and all that kind of stuff. So, but we could use somebody on the Astro Imaging channel. We've had some success lately, and these appeals where I ask you to, put on the show. This thing is run by you guys. You people out there have to volunteer, come forward, and if you've got a topic that you want to present to us, like ICE is going to present the stuff about electronic assisted astronomy, and we've got a couple of guys that volunteered because of this appeal here to do some stuff about comet processing back when we were going to have a big comet this May, and that kind of stuff. We need your help to do that. So keep that in mind. We're getting ready to wrap up. Where did I go? I've lost my other feeds. So, Tolga, are we ready to wrap up? Or Eric, are we ready to wrap up?
Yeah, I'm good. We can end.
Okay, so good night, everybody. We'll see you next week. Come on back and we'll have another show. Okay,
All right. Good night,
Thanks, guys.
everybody. See you next week.
good night.
Night.
Bye-bye.